Hi, my name is Anthony Giandomenico. People call me Tony G. I'm the practice director for our digital forensics and incident response services. And today I'm going to be talking about ransomware in the real world, tales from the front line. This is information that's coming specifically out of our managed detection and response and our incident response services. So I'll walk through that targeted ransomware attack, and then I'll dive into, with a couple of slides, just talking about some of the specific FortiGuard security consulting services that we're getting this information from. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we continue to see security incidents. I know I'm preaching to the choir these days, but just hear me out. I got one slide here. You look at the Verizon breach report from last year, and they reported a record 157,000 plus incidents that occurred last year. A lot of that is not only being driven by the automation with malware, when once it's in the environment, it spreads fairly quickly, but also because the adversaries are changing their tactics a little bit and they're being more targeted, specifically when it comes to ransomware attacks, right? So they're in the environment, they're rummaging around the network, and before they drop a destructive ransomware payload to encrypt your files, they're also exfiltrating your data. They're getting rid of all your backups if they're able to. They're removing all your volume shadow copies, anything that they can do to increase the chances that you're going to pay that particular ransom. And they're having a lot of success. Now, adding on to that, there are 70 plus known evasion techniques, according to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, that the adversaries can use to circumvent your current security controls today. And when you look at this, when you look at specifically around ransomware attacks, the impact, of course, is much greater than just exfiltrating data, right? Because it stops your business from working. Your critical business processes get put on hold until you're able to either pay the ransom or get those systems back up and running again. Now I'm going to walk you through a targeted ransomware attack that was gleaned from one of our incident response engagements. Now, in this case, initial access was through a phishing email. After that, Cobalt Strike was injected into a process that was already running in memory. Cobalt Strike then communicated back to the adversary's infrastructure and established that initial communication back there. From there, the adversary wants to escalate their privileges, and they can do that in a variety of different ways. But they also want to be able to grab the right credentials. So they're doing an actual technique called OS credential dumping. In this case, they were able to download a tool and extract the credentials from the LSASS process. As a matter of fact, this is the first step the adversary needs to be able to move laterally within the network. But they also need to be able to discover things in the environment. What are the different types of hosts that are available? Where is the actual data, right? Scanning Active Directory to know what the Active Directory environment looks like. Also scanning the network for different types of network shares. To be able to scan for Active Directory, they downloaded a tool called AD-Find. For scanning the network for SMB shares and what have you, they downloaded a tool called NetScan. They can use a variety of different tools to be able to do that. In this case, they use those specific tools. Now, as they're rummaging around the environment, eventually they're going to find the data that they want to be able to exfiltrate. And in this case, they exfiltrated data from a file server to a Dropbox account. So keep in mind, or at least keep a lookout for some of them, those cloud storage apps. Now the adversary starts to move laterally within the environment. They want to be able to copy their malware and execute it remotely on all the different systems that it can within the environment. In this case, the malicious payload that was copied and executed was called Qbot. And Qbot was spread from a tool from sysinternals called PSExec. It's a great tool that allows you to copy and then execute the malware remotely by installing it as an actual service. It also used admin shares, $, admin $. Those are hidden shares that are available if you have the right access to be able to copy that malware. Once Qbot was installed, it also then would create scheduled tasks to be able to survive an actual reboot. So keep in mind, you got to look out for those scheduled tasks. And then lastly here, the actual ransomware it gets deployed. The key thing here I want to nail home though is when you're dealing with a targeted ransomware attack, keep in mind, you're probably going to find additional payloads out there because one, maybe some of the tools that the adversary was downloading, your security controls were blocking it, right? So they're going to try to download other different types of tools to see if they can circumvent your current security controls. In this case, Dridex and IcedID were downloaded. These particular malwares can do a variety of different things. In this case, they had loaded different keystroke loggers to be able to grab as much information as they could. Hopefully, they can find some more username and passwords. Now, just bringing it home here, there are a couple honorable mentions, tactics and techniques I wanted to mention here. One is Qbot's dirty little anti-analysis trick. One of the things that Qbot does is they will overwrite their payload with a legitimate file on the Windows system. In this case, it was calc.exe that they used to overwrite the actual malicious payload. Makes it a little bit harder, to be able to find that actual payload. Also, keep an eye open for BITSAdmin. You don't really see that much in the environment, but BITSAdmin here was used to be able to transfer some malicious payloads down to the environment. And then lastly here, there's so many different common adversary actions that we see across a lot of our targeted ransomware attacks. I think some of these are probably obvious to most of you. Destroying online backups. If you have online backups, they're probably going to be able to destroy those. They're deleting volume shadow copies. They're disabling your endpoint security controls, even taking it to the point where they're uninstalling that security control, downloading and installing their malicious payload, and then reinstalling that security control. And then lastly here, oftentimes we see the actual ransomware payload being delivered and executed through either group policy objects in Active Directory or from some of the login and log off scripts. All right, so how do you defend against some of these target attacks? With Fortinet, we have these two security consulting services from FortiGuard. That's our managed detection and response service and our incident response services. And I just want to dive into them really quick, but I did want to let everybody know here that these services are being driven by FortiGuard Labs, right? We have 215 researchers, analysts across 31 different countries. We are observing billions of events in real-time production environments, right? Sifting through all that, trying to find different types of patterns and different types of trends, right? But not only are we getting that information from our millions of sensors that are deployed out there, we also have a very robust threat information sharing program where we're sharing information with over 200 partners, collaborators, government, agencies, a lot of different entities. And that as that information kind of comes in, we're pre-processing it, we're deduplicating it, we're validating it. I say this because this is very valuable information for our managed detection and response and our incident response services. Now with that, let me dive in a little bit more on our MDR service, the managed detection and response. This is a proactive service. We are monitoring out of our security operations center 24/7 the events that are coming out of the FortiEDR platform, right? So we're triaging every single event, analyzing it, and if we need to, we're taking action, right? We're trying to mitigate that incident as quickly as possible. Now, if you're not fortunate enough as a customer to have our 24/7 threat hunting service, that's okay. You can still reach out to us for our reactive service, which is our incident response service. And this is a service that helps an actual customer through a crisis situation, right? We're helping this with the analysis, the containment, the remediation of security incidents that are hitting their environment. Another important part, one of the main toolings that we use to deliver this service is FortiEDR. FortiEDR is an amazing tool at being able to identify malicious activity in the environment. It's also able to automatically take action for us, and we can get a lot more surgical with our actions, which allows us, one, to be able to move very quickly from the analysis phase to the containment and remediation phase, and also surgically do the containment and remediation without actually having to bring all the different sort of services and systems down. So with that said, the quicker you move, right, the lower the impact is going to be on that security incident. So if you want to find out more information about these FortiGuard security consulting services, check out our fact sheets that are online. So with that, until next time, I'm Tony G.